race that I sent you, he got involved in that too.
Hip hop and R&B, African, disco, oldies but goodies.
Hi, this is Janet Jackson.
We're bridging the gap. Seriously. Splash Radio 94.3 New Jersey.
Hey, did you see that post online about Julie? I totally wrote it. Wasn't it hilarious? Is all of that true? Who cares? She's done anyways.
Are you talking about that post about Julie?
Yeah, funny, right?
No, but that post about you was.
What post?
Oh, you didn't hear? You're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, and oh yeah, you smell too. The whole school saw it, no big deal.
That's so mean. Did they really write that about me?
No, how does it feel?
Sometimes you can feel all alone when being bullied, and that's when you can really use a friend. If you see someone or know someone that's being bullied online, let them know they're not alone. Stand up now, support a friend, and save a life. For more information on cyberbullying, visit stopthemean.wordpress.com or call the hotline at 1-800-555-STOP. A message from your friends here at Splash Radio.
Looking for trustworthy tax professionals? Give Impact Corp a call. We will assist you with all your tax needs. We are a team of CPAs and IRS enrolled agents. If you are audited, our audit protection team will represent you at no out-of-pocket costs. We provide 3 years audit protection and a year identity theft protection, so you can have peace of mind without fear of audit. Call our team of tax experts today, 973-395-4401.
Well, we're moving on now to the side, to a deluxe apartment.
Are you live already?
Hi, this is McBoomin Moving, box truck for rent, for
So,
all your light moving needs.
they're in Newark.
Within the Northeast Orange, Irvington Orange.
So in Newark,
$50 a trip.
they
from
had the
Monday
board
through
election,
Thursday.
right? They
$60
hired
from Friday through
or
Sunday.
elected
Call
probably the most
862
incompetent board members
279
ever.
9300.
And then
That's
862 they just
930.
oh, you may want to mute that because I can hear it. Yeah, they
The
not only did
biggest
they do that,
outdoor water
but then they
party
took
to
this
hit
young
New
lady,
Jersey. H2O,
right,
and Soca, formerly known as
who was
PCW. Go to
the chairman of the Program and
H2O
Instruction Committee.
NJ.eventbrite.com.
Right, you know what that committee does, right?
Oh.
She's the most qualified candidate. She's the only certified candidate.
Curriculum in our district.
Right.
Yeah.
But she is the only candidate, only board member qualified to be a principal in the Newark Public School System, right, on the board. They removed her from this committee. And they put a guy who knows nothing about curriculum, knows nothing about anything, strictly for political. So I would, when I talk about the city and all that's going on there, but I want you as a board member to explain the implications of having somebody chair this committee who knows nothing about curriculum, knows nothing about anything, what that could mean to a school system. That's already under state control.
Yeah.
That's begging for local control to be restored.
Just like us, yeah. I won't get into specifics and put anything thrown under the bus, but I'll just say in theory how this works and how it's supposed to work and how we do it in Jersey.
Hello, this is Splash Radio, Eric Dawson. Hey, brother. All right, hold on. We should go through the commercials. Hold on.
Check out colorheritage.com.
And this is the former chairman of the Newark Board of Education.
For
Who's
the
going
most
to be on
authentic
for a little
Caribbean
while
food
to
in town.
explain that, unpack it. So we're going to let him unpack it. You can weigh in. And when he's off, then we'll talk about it. Then we'll go into Jersey City and then we'll...
Hey, just so you know, I know what you call it,
Resurrection.
after I got elected, I was
Extended
also elected
bakery
the vice
department
president
that
of the
whips up my favorite, the hot hardo bread. Why
and I'm
don't
chairing
we?
3
That's
committees.
your
I'm chairman of the
choice.
legal committee, I'm chairman of the student equity and workforce committee, and I'm co-chair of the return to local committee.
Serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they also cater to vegans and vegetarians with the Ital stew and the Ital aki, the soul jerk salmon and mango tilapia. And of course, they got the usual curry goat, oxtail, brown stew chicken, jerk chicken, and so much more. I mean, their menu is extended and they're highly rated. Your best bet is to just stop by or give them a call. They're open Monday through Wednesday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Thursday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sundays, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. They're located at 56 Main Street in Orange, New Jersey, and can be reached at 973-395-3777.
I think that's awesome, man.
I won all of the 6 awards in my race. I won all 5 awards. I won 5 awards except Dan.
Let your food be a medicine. Eat well, live longer. I'm David Shepard, and I endorse this commercial.
We got to get North in that place.
I want to work with you for this campaign. Maybe the next campaign we should work.
10 o'clock.
Hey, bro, you're doing a great job. Love listening to you.
On 94.3.
Because they've really screwed up your district, man. The charterization is unbelievable.
Splash
And they made it like one giant
94.3.
clearinghouse. That's what the district is now. It's a bank for the charter.
Dance hall. Soca.
And like we talked before, you know, I don't have a problem with like the you know, it is the corporate charter schools that I have an issue with. The community charter schools, I think.
Splash Radio 94.3.
The unregulated corporate charters.
Well, I don't know, so Mr. J represent for 94.3 FM Splash Radio. We don't
What would you
splash
class as a
out the
community
music
charter?
on them.
There you go.
Initialize sequence now.
Damn. Oh,
Initialize sequence
not sure what happened.
now.
Damn.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the intro, but we'll keep moving. So this is Eric Dawson. This is the Eric Dawson Radio Show, 94.3 FM. Calling number 973-457-8000. Again, 973-457-8000. If you're listening through a mobile device, it's 213-493-0287. And if you guys are home on this rainy day and you want to check us out, you can. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, so you visit my Facebook page and you can check us out there. Firstly, and I don't know whether we do this. Do we say Happy Memorial Day? Well, before we do that, I want to announce my guest, Sudhan Thomas.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, folks back home. Let's pause to reflect and be grateful for today and what we have as a nation collectively received through the sacrifices of the best men and women out there. And God bless these United States of America.
Yeah, man. So, but people say Happy Memorial Day. But when you understand what Memorial Day represents, is it really a happy Memorial Day, or, you know, is it just a reflective Memorial Day?
I would say it's, you know, a lot of reflection, a lot of gratitude. You know, it's a day for us to be grateful for the sacrifices that have been made to endure our freedom and to preserve the greatness of our nation. In a way, I think there's a lot of happiness in the sense of more gratefulness. And I think personally I've seen it being confused with as a holiday for, you know, opening of swimming pools and barbecues, which is all great, nice and dandy. But I think the core message of today is to remember the men and women who you know, laid their lives for us, and I think that's the essential message of this
But I think
weekend.
that what happens in our culture is we get wrapped up in consumerism too, right? So Memorial Day is about buying mattresses at half price or flat screen TVs at half price. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
Cars, all those kinds of things. So people are waiting for the sale that occurs on Memorial Day, and like you said, they're waiting to imbibe, and they're waiting to to go to barbecues. But if you were asked the average person, I'm concerned that they really wouldn't understand the meaning of Memorial Day.
Yeah, at the same time, it's not really a day of mourning. It's a day to celebrate, the sacrifices. So the culture of our country has evolved, around these periodic holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, which is good in a sense. If you see, we have predictable holidays every year, so we can plan our, calendars accordingly. So I think it's the cultural aspect, which is, I think, which has evolved over the years. Even if you look at Thanksgiving, a lot of folks would lament that it has become less of families coming together and more of folks waiting in line for Black Thursday,
Right.
shopping. So that's the cultural component of it. But I think, especially with everything that's going around the world, and for our generation, the 9/11 generation, I think it's important to really stop and reflect on the magnitude of what this day is, and let's think of the families out there who are missing a person.
Absolutely.
The children who are missing their fathers, the wives who are missing their husbands, the parents who have buried their kids
Mm-hmm.
in service of our nation. And I think that is the essential core message for today.
So we also have on the line joining us because this is the topic, even though this isn't Tuesday where we specifically talk about education, there have been a number of things that have occurred that require us to preempt some of our normal stuff. And also, before I introduce Brother Rashan Hassan, who's called in, I want to wish my normal Monday co-host, Kevin Jenkins, well. He struggled all weekend trying to make it in here. He couldn't make it in on Friday for Wrap-Up Friday. He called in, and he was a real soldier and did that. And then his wife told him to go to bed, to try to self-medicate and get himself together. He called me this morning, man, coughing and everything. Said, look, I can't make it in. So I wish him well. I know he's on his way to the doctor. So I just want to let you guys know that's where Kevin is. But we do have on the phone former chairman Rashan Hassan, former chairman of the Newark Board of Education. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Hey, man, listen, we got powerhouses here. So got a former chairman, got a current vice president, and these are the two largest cities in the state of New Jersey. And so we're going to talk about and unpack some of what's going on both in Newark and in Jersey City and the state and even some national stuff talking about Devos. But what I want to start with, because we got a limited amount of time with Brother Rashan Hassan, is what's going on in Newark. The current chairman of the Board of Education, Marquise Lewis, did something that I would consider to be unprecedented, and many people are saying it's illegal for him to have stepped in and worked to remove somebody and replace somebody on a committee on the board. But in any event, what he did was he took board member Leah Owens. And remember, guys, Leah Owens is one of a couple of board members who spoke out against Marquise Lewis becoming chairman of the Board of Education. And I believe her words were, he didn't earn it. And so now, after him being installed as the chairman of the Board of Education, he removes Leah Owens from being the chair of the Program and Instruction Committee. And as I read, there's something on change.org, a petition to sign, which I think is a feeble attempt. I mean, this isn't what you guys do. What I think you need to do is get your asses downtown and weigh in on what's going on the Board of Education and deal with it from that perspective. But for you to, I think that this is just passive aggressiveness, putting this up. But in any way, what it does talk about is her being the only board member who is certified as an educator and qualified to serve as a principal in the Newark Public Schools. So now I want you to understand this. If that is the truth, that out of all of the board members, she is the only member certified as an educator, qualified to serve as a principal of the Newark Public School System, and you remove her from her chairmanship of the Program and Instruction Committee, and then you replace her with Reggie Bledsoe, and we've talked about Reggie Bledsoe in terms of his fraudulent campaign, the fact that he lied and said that he had a degree and he doesn't have a degree, and nobody at this point feels that they need to address that because they don't feel that the residents of Newark give a damn, you know, and so they're pushing forward and running roughshod over the residents and the students for that matter in the city of Newark. But what I want to ask you, Rashawn, is to explain, well, both of you guys, to explain what the Program and Instruction Committee is and the value of somebody who is certified in the way that Leah Owens is.
Yeah, so, you know, Eric, the Program and Instruction Committee is responsible for all program and curriculum that's related to the district. So, you know, one charge for that committee would be to review and adopt the current curriculum that the district has, and that should be done annually. If the district is undergoing any changes to the current curriculum that they have, that work will be done through the committee. If the district is bringing a proposal before the board to purchase certain textbooks, that will go before the Program and Instruction Committee. If the district is having any conversation about moving more towards project-based learning or expanding the number of Chromebooks or how they actually use Chromebooks or technology in the classroom, all of those things will be funneled through the Program and Instruction Committee. So it's very important for you to have certified individuals who have experience inside of the classroom to really navigate that space, because you need to have folks that can ask the critical questions, particularly trying to align those initiatives to student outcomes. And I don't see how you can make that happen when you don't have a qualified individual who's leading that committee. And in the past, Eric, we've always had someone leading that committee who has had experience teaching.
So, Sudhan, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think former Chairman Rashawn Hassan pretty eloquently articulated the raison d'etre of this committee, which is pretty important. And I'm not 100% familiar with the structure in Newark, but in Jersey City, it's all the more important for us because we don't control curriculum. That's one piece of the state control that has not come back. Rashawn, you probably have to educate me on the status of the pieces of the puzzle that have been restored in Newark. But overall, there are very common fundamental similarities between the districts in Newark and Jersey City, which is an impetus or an urgent need to evolve and make current and contextualize the educational curriculum. We use the word educational curriculum in Jersey City for this committee in Newark, which is referred to as the Instruction Committee. And I think I'll agree with the former chairman. It's important to have somebody who has real-world classroom experience, and also, especially when you have a change of guard like this, it's important to ensure continuity. And I think that's really, I don't want to jump into the weeds into the inner workings of the Newark board, but this is just a generic response. But as far as the opening statement that you had put out, I do not know the bylaws of the Newark School Board. I can speak for Jersey City, and in general, what we have seen is the presidents or the chairmen of school boards, they don't have any singular special executive power. This is a board of equals. This is a board of peers, where the president is more of a first among equals, and the weight is more in terms of running the meeting, the chairperson of the meeting, rather than individual executive latitude. Having said that, the only one exception to that is the president is expected to appoint leadership to the committees, and it is expected that it is done in the best interest and in coordination and communication with other board members. Also, in this case, when there's been a change of guard with the former leadership as well, because we don't like to see committees do a kind of an etch-a-sketch with every year. There has to be continuity, and I think that's critical and important.
So, your understanding and having been the chairman of the Newark Board of Education, Rashawn, does the chairman have unilateral power to be able to remove and appoint folks to these various committees?
Yeah, so I'll unpack it, but I wanted to respond to that aspect of local control that was mentioned.
Okay.
And program and instruction is the area that we've seen very little progress in when it comes down to restoring local control in the city of Newark. So with that being said, this is the one committee that we cannot afford to have individuals serving in positions that they don't have the skill set for, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
So here in Newark, the chairperson does have the authority to appoint committee members, but according to the bylaws of the board, the committee members themselves shall elect the chairperson. So the power or authority to appoint a committee chairperson, that power does not rest with the chair or the president of the board. And, I think it's been the past practice by the Newark Board of Education. Past presidents have done it. They've gone out and they've appointed certain board members to serve as committee chairpersons. However, during my term as the chair of the board, I referred to what was in the bylaws, File Code 9130, which clearly states that the committee members shall select a committee chairperson. So while I made the appointments to the board members, for the board members to serve on the various committees, once they were appointed, they themselves actually voted to determine who would be the chairperson to lead them. And if you go back and you look at who served on that program and instruction committee during my tenure as president, we had 3 educators on the board. We had Antoinette Baskerville-Richardson, Daniqua Matthias, who was on a guest on the show with us last week. Mm-hmm. We had Dr. Rashid McCreary. All 3 of those educators were the members from our program and instruction committee. And they themselves voted and elected to keep Daniqua Matthias on as the chairperson of that committee. When I came on the board, she was the chairperson leading that committee, doing great work. And those group of individuals elected to keep her on for the following year to continue to serve in that capacity.
So then part of this would be to understand, because I'm reading a chain on social media where folks are asking Marquise Lewis why he did what he did, and he's very emphatic about saying that, I'm the chairperson, I'm the chairman, and I made this decision. And again, I made this decision. I mean, there are 3 or 4 posts where he's not saying that that the committee did that he made an appointment, that he appointed to the committee, and that the committee then voted for a chairperson. He's saying that he took the bull by the horns and he orchestrated this entire thing. And so now, according to the code that you just mentioned, would you say that is then a violation for him to have done this, if in fact he did do it?
Yes, he's in absolute violation of the bylaws of the Newark Board of Education, specifically File Code 9130, which references committees, and it clearly outlines how the committee members shall be appointed. And again, it's not even something that should just be done by the board chairperson. As written in the Newark Board of Education's bylaws, it states that those committee members shall be appointed in collaborate by the board chairperson and the superintendent. They should be working in collaboration to make those appointments to the committees, right? Making sure that they're aligning those individuals to committees based on their skill set. And then once those appointments are done, the committee members themselves should vote as to who will be the chairperson. And by him saying that he's gone and appointed individuals, he's clearly letting us know that he's going around these bylaws that are currently in place right now, and that he's in violation of it. And if you're going to be in a position of power and you're going to violate the bylaws that are currently on the books, then what are you going to do when you're faced with other critical decisions and there's a policy already in place that tells you how that's supposed to be handled? You don't have absolute power as the chairperson of the board. You are just one person out of that group. You get one vote just like everyone else. So there is no absolute power that rests with the chairperson of any board of education for that matter. So I think this was definitely a bad move. I stated this a few weeks ago when we spoke on the show, that he had to make sure that he was able to rally the troops and get everybody focused on improving the school district. He hasn't even been in this position for 2 months now, and there's a petition out here, specifically speaking to an action that he took that he did not have the power or authority to. The other, part of this that's really troubling is that there are no complaints or there's no pushback coming from those other individuals who serve on the board. I think regardless of what kind of relationship you have with the chairperson, if you're serving on that board with him, you cannot allow him or anyone else to violate any of the policies or bylaws that are currently in place. It's written in black and white. If you're serious about restoring local control and having local governance in our community and in our town, you have to follow the policies that we have in place. You can't just fly off on a tangent and do your own thing. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, brother, listen, man. I'm look, when I read this over the weekend, and then I was inboxed because he and I are not friends on social media, so somebody had to send me the screen captures of the conversation that's going on. It does appear that Marquise Lewis has no real intention, at least from these posts, of engaging the community in a respectful way. In fact, there's one where he's just being asked, why did you do this? He said, I don't appreciate the tone of this thread questioning my decision when folks have my number to call. So people want to have an open dialogue in this thread in social media to find out why this guy, so he's the same social media that he used when he ran 2 years ago or whatever it was, 3 years ago, and was engaging people in discussions about why he should be elected to the board. The same social media platform, he now says, I don't want to have these public and open conversations about my decision. I want you to call me in private so that I can talk to you about why I did it. And then, for him to say now, again, that I don't appreciate the tone. These are residents of the city of Newark whose children attend these schools who are saying, wait a minute, we don't understand. And now, in light of what you and Sudhan are saying, how imperative it is to have qualified people on this committee in particular, that we've been struggling with this issue in terms of getting local control back. And for him now to appoint Reggie Bledsoe, who by all accounts has no understanding of curriculum at all, I think doesn't bode well for the school system. And I posted on my page, I said, I pray to God that whoever the next governor is takes this into consideration and realizes that folks in Newark are not ready for local control. We're not ready to make sound decisions that are in the best interest of our children. We're still making politically based decisions that serve a few as opposed to the many.
Couldn't agree with that more. I would say, and there are going to be times, the continuity is very important. When you have a school district, school board, like Newark as an example, is a non-member board. 3 of those board members come off every year. So you have a 33% turnover ratio every year on that board. You have to do whatever you can to really maintain the continuity and to make sure that, folks are continuing with the overall mission and the vision. And I get that, sometimes some changes need to be made in terms of what committees individuals serve on. But you have to be justified in that decision-making process. So, I would say to Chairman Lewis, with this decision, how do you justify not continuing to keep this person or this colleague of yours, Leah Owens, in position to lead that committee when she's the only person on that board right now who has any teaching experience?
Yeah, but look, and you know me, I'm going to cut right to the chase. He doesn't feel he has to justify it. In the last election, and I mentioned this, and we unpacked it when we had Education Week, those who led the charge in the last school board election made it very clear that they didn't expect a high voter turnout, that they really weren't interested in educating the electorate on the issues, and so they don't feel that they owe any explanation for what it is that they do. They feel like they can operate in a bubble and do whatever they want because there's going to be no pushback by the people. And so Chairman Lewis, they don't expect to have more than 20 people show up at a board meeting. Because when people were showing up, they were showing up because the mayor was bringing them to board meetings to oust Cammie Anderson. But, now you got surfing there. Nothing has really changed, and those people are no longer coming. So they recognize that the mayor controls them. The mayor now controls all of these folks on the board. And so I wouldn't put it past them to just say, you know what, we're going to push through what we want to push through and to hell with the people of the city of Newark. And that's what I really believe. And we see it evidence. I mean, look, you had no complaints from any of the board members about it. They're all sitting on their hands. And I got to say this, too. Even Leah Owens, who was removed, who understands the critical role she plays in that committee, I haven't heard her be outspoken about it either. I mean, to me, that is the biggest thing. So I saw this innocuous petition show up on change.org, right? But I don't see her out there publicly, and I was on her page. I don't see her out there saying, this is a travesty. I need to rally people. You need to show up at the next board meeting and have the chairman explain himself. They're not doing that because I think that at the end of the day, Rashawn, the majority of these people want to be tied to a political system for their personal gain. And so they're not willing to cross people. They're not willing to go out on a limb for the children in the city of Newark. They want to stay in a safe place so that when the winds change, they can be benefactors.
Eric, if I may weigh in on that, this specific person you're referring to, there may be strict ethics laws that one has to follow of not going out and acting unilaterally independent of the board. Because we have a classic case in our board where one of our board members is being alleged to have operated on his own. And the Deputy Attorney General of New Jersey is now investigating that case, prosecuting that case actually. So, like I said, I can't comment deep into this because I don't know the specific structure of the bylaws of the Newark School Board. But to her credit, I think we should just give her a little bit of benefit of doubt.
So I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting that if you're a board member and you were removed from a committee, that you can't publicly talk about having been removed from that committee?
I think we can talk about it, but I think it's more of an intra-board issue, and I'll invite. I'm curious to hear what the former chairman's position on this is, because these are very specifically intra-board issues, and some of it is very grave. Frankly, some of these bylaws are not completely well thought out. Somebody wrote this 20 years ago, and it's being handed down and being followed. In Jersey City, we are working hard to contextualize a lot of these things so that culture doesn't become the law, because folks have said, "Hey, this is what we've been doing." Does it make it right? No, it's not, but that's what they've been doing, and so they get away with it. So I just want to give that small window saying we should give some benefit of the doubt to her, because we just don't know what are the boundaries within which she has to operate. This is a very strong intra-board issue. This is something that the board has to sit and figure out. They have closed sessions, they have meetings, and this is something that they should figure out among themselves. I'm very proud to see. I'm enthused by seeing public, involvement at a committee level thing. I wish we had that level of, engagement in Jersey City, and I'm fascinated to see this. And under the new leadership in Jersey City, President Torres and a bunch of our new board members have come in. We're trying to engage and interact more with the citizens so that the citizens can be strongly engaged with the board and being able to shape the district, which is really their future. But I just want to say that we should take a hard look at the bylaws. Probably the chairman is better positioned to comment on it, but we should just give her the benefit of doubt.
Okay.
Yes. So when it comes to, I think Brother Sudhan is very speaking truth in regards to members of the board not acting on their own. The difference that I would say in this particular case is that if Leah Owens was to step out and make a public comment about this, she wouldn't be speaking on behalf of the board. She would actually be speaking on behalf of herself as an individual board member, which is different. You know, she's not going out and voting and supporting a contract. You know, I remember a few years ago when I served on the board, there were a few board members who took it upon themselves to have to host a press conference requesting the resignation of Cammie Anderson and the Stop the One North plan. That wasn't something that the entire board voted on. You know, you had a handful of board members who decided to step out and do that on their own as individuals.
Yeah.
Again, there was no action that was actually taken because they weren't voting on something on behalf of the board. They were just stepping out and speaking as individuals, and they all did make the statement, we're here speaking today, but we're not here representing the views of the entire board. We're here speaking as individuals. So I think she definitely has the right to do that. I think as an elected official, understanding that they have a rough road ahead of themselves and they're going to have to work with each other on this board, I think they need to figure out how they make this thing work. I'm not sure what Leah is doing right now to address it, but you know, I would also beg to ask, you know, what's this state-appointed superintendent's view on this? Because again, as I read in the bylaws for the North Board of Education, current superintendent has a role in that. And, you know, that was something that I had discussion with former Superintendent Cammie Anderson about as well. You know, it's making sure we have strong committee structures in place. So I'll be curious to know, you know, what the superintendent's view is on this and what kind of feedback he and his staff have given to Chairman Lewis, as they too understand and know that program and instruction, this is one of the most critical areas that we have, right? If you're not doing what you need to do under the umbrella of program and instruction, then what are you here for? Because that's the one area that this board...
In October last year, before the elections, we had spoken about evolving current educational curriculum to actually train and help our kids succeed in the real world. And if you remember, I spoke about the 3C program: school to corporate jobs, school to craftsmanship, and school to college. And this is something which we are working at a subcommittee level, at the committee level in Jersey City, and we are hoping to actually come out of the program next academic year, which will actually, as a first stab, target a minimum of 500 seniors to actually go into internships and jobs across about 15 unions. And the corporate job numbers we don't have as yet because it's still in gestation. So I couldn't agree more with Chairman Hassan, because today's education framework has to dovetail into tomorrow's life of our kids. It can't be existing as a bubble. Unfortunately, I think when you take a look at it from the outside, it's also contributes to a lack of motivation, because most of the kids we talk to say, hey, how is this going to help me in my life? You know, how is this going to help me pay my bills in the future? The current curriculum has to be made context, and I used to say this a lot during the campaign. If a child is interested in gardening, there has to be a patch of a little garden in the school for that child. That motivates the child to go to school, and that's how you create aspiration for them to want to do something after the school. If the school curriculum is independent of the future life, it's just like a placeholder. They're just waiting for the 12 years to end and then get out, or sometimes they drop out. So this curriculum instruction, as they call it in Newark, and curriculum as we call it in Jersey City, is existential to the future of our kids. Especially both these districts are now on the cusp of return to local control. We have to pay a lot of attention to this and make it modern, because if you look at the new economies of the world today, of primarily the United States, if you look at the technology economy, if you look at the biotech economy, it's almost running independent of the school curriculum. There's no overlap. That's the overlap we need to bring. We need to bring that with new 2017, 21st century ideas, not really 100, and again I'm talking for myself here, but we have to bring about new ideas to make them really contiguous, so that once the child is off the school, he is actually able to lay reference to every step in his school in his current day life.
Right. So in Jersey City, who comprises that committee with you? I mean, like, what are the qualifications of the folks who are on that committee in Jersey City?
Well, I can tell you unconditionally, we have a superstar who's the head of our education curriculum committee. Her name is Marilyn Roman. She's been a teacher for over 30 years. She's also served in office. She was a councilwoman. She was a freeholder. She was even the former mayor of Jersey City. And we have a rock star person there. And we are very comfortable with the work she's doing. And, you know, that committee is in safe hands. You know, and if you go back to the tapes of our board meetings and our caucuses, and if you look up Ms. Roman's presentations, you know that she's fighting every day, every minute for the future of our kids. And if you walk down the streets of Jersey City with her, she knows 3 generations of people, because she's either taught them or she's somebody's parent or somebody's grandparent, you know.
So then my question becomes, when you talk about a person with those credentials, right, and then you have over on this end, I get literally on the opposite end of the spectrum in Reggie Bledsoe, who's done none of that.
See, the thing is,
and then I have to, so I'm always curious about why within New Jersey we have, and then, you know, there's superstars right up the road in South Orange who are on the South Orange Board of Education. Why we aren't looking and trying to find the best and the brightest, right? Looking at what works, what doesn't work, looking at past experiences of people who are now serving on those committees, and saying, you know what, we need to make sure that we have, you know, that kind of structure. We need to make sure that we have those kinds of qualifications, because it worked well, it's working well in Jersey City, or it's working well in South Orange, or it's working well in Montclair. But we, like, it's like we just go, like you said earlier, we operate in a bubble in some of these municipalities, in some of these districts, and we reinvent a wheel that doesn't necessarily need to be reinvented. See, we just need to perfect it.
You hit we're onto something important here, and again, you know, I like to go back to the campaign, because that was an amazing learning experience for us, and everything we're doing today is drawn from that. And the classroom real-life experience also should emulate that. But going back, one of the things I found during our campaign was I had over 200 meetings with different, you know, elected officials and experts in the education field, just to seek counsel. And one of the things I would ask them is, when did you last hear from one of the members from the Jersey City Board of Education? And I can tell you, right from city all the way to federal, a lot of folks hadn't heard from our, you know, from our board. And I spoke about this constantly in the campaign. And what we need to bring about is, you know, these are the different loaves of the government, you know, and these need to be talking to each other. This is the democratic structure of our country. And if these different pieces of the puzzle don't talk to each other, then it's the bubble, it's island operation. Now, one thing that I would like to strongly advocate today is for the different boards to be able to start talking to each other. For instance, I'm in Jersey City. I speak constantly to the leadership in West New York, which is our next district. We are also talking amongst ourselves to try and see if we can create a broad coalition of the former Abbott districts, because the former Abbott districts kind of face the same situation, and it's unique to us compared to the non-Abbott districts. But this board-to-board communication is very, very important, because we learn. Because just listening to Chairman Hassan, my mind is already running at 100 miles an hour right now, because I'm learning things that they are doing, which we don't do right now in Jersey City. For example, the committee leadership being an elected thing. I think that's a fascinating thing, because I agree with it. The president, or as we call, or the chairman as they call him, Noor, is really a chairperson for the meeting. He's the first among equals. He doesn't have any unique executive latitude or a discretionary powers like the President of the United States, you know, has. So these are the things that we can learn by talking to each other, you know. And I think board members, at least from districts with same set of problems, talking to each other, seeking counsel, and does not have to be a like a once in a month dinner and wine session, which ends up being a party. But this can be really educational, text messaging. For example, we have a fire in Jersey City 2 days ago. About 50 families have been displaced. And we have 30 students that need to go to school on Tuesday, but they're all housed in a hotel. Some of the schools are public schools, some of the schools are charter schools. Some of the schools are charter schools in Hoboken, for instance, or public schools in Hoboken. We already started an informal dialogue because we know who these folks are. So we're talking to say, hey, what can we do on Tuesday morning to get these kids picked up from the hotel and taken to the respective schools? But that's because we know who these folks are. But if in the absence of communication, it's impossible to do that.
Well, then because former Chairman Hassan is on every Tuesday, and we discuss education issues nationally, statewide, and local. How do we plug in to Jersey City to have you guys be a part of our Tuesday discussion?
I think, like I said, today I'm here for myself, but I'm happy to speak to the board and see if they want to take this up as a ongoing situation, or even if individual board members would be willing to sign up every Tuesday in an individual capacity and speak for themselves. And I think you should not limit yourself to Newark and Jersey City.
Mm-hmm.
We are neighboring cities, and we have almost.
Oh no, I want to reach out to everybody.
Yeah,
I want everybody on here because we all face similar issues.
Yeah.
And our children are suffering in similar ways. And if we don't act as a collective to resolve these issues, then we all, we all lose.
I speak constantly to Adam Parkinson, who's the president of West New York. I'll be happy to introduce you to him.
Mm-hmm.
Bayonne had a bunch of problems, as you might have been tracking in the last few weeks. I think Bayonne will want to be part of this. I think it's important for board members to be glued to each other, to interact. And your show could be the crucible that brings the folks together, Well,
that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, but this is something I've always evangelized, that these districts should not be working in isolation. And I'll go one step further. I like to keep conversations positive, but I'm also a doubting Thomas, And it's important for board members to be connected because board members can educate each other on what they can do, what they cannot do, and how to tackle problems. Because sometimes you have these constant threats of impedance that prevents board members from functioning to their full merit. And I think it's very, very important.
What are the threats of impedance?
For example, if you see in the history in Newark, every time a board member tried to do something, they were threatened with ethics violations. It's a constant, it's a very standard playbook, that's been used over the years to restrict and kind of keep board members, school board members in a very tight framework. But I think this free flow of information will help educate on what you can do and what you can't do.
And I think not only the free flow of information from board member to board member or from board to board, but also having the community listening and engaged in the discussion as you guys are doing. That really becomes the mortar, right? That pulls it together, because then it empowers, I think, the board members in a different kind of way where you're not beholden to political structures. Now, you have been building and developing relationships with your constituents. And then now when you show up at a board meeting or when you go to push for a particular policy, they're well informed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very important for board members to understand, and this is something that I wake up to and try to live every day, is that we are there because the people elected us. The citizens of the city, of the district, voted for us. It's our name on the ballot, and we have a sacred obligation and a duty to serve them. And it should be a people first, responsibility. Go ahead, Chairman. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're right on. I would add to that that interaction with other board members, that also serves as another component of training.
Yes.
When you're learning those experiences and you're understanding what's taking place in other school districts. When I first was elected to serve on the Newark Board of Education, that first year, I really thought that only Newark had the kind of issues that we were dealing with. Like the dilapidated facilities, issues with funding. Those issues aren't unique to just Newark or Jersey City. You interact with some board members from, Toms River, Neptune, Asbury Park, you name it. They're similar issues that are taking place up and down the state of New Jersey. And again, you don't know that these issues exist or how these boards are actually handling those issues unless you step outside of that box or get off of that little island, as you say, Eric, and start networking with those other individuals and start sharing your experience about what's taking place in your school district. And then you start to build a coalition around these particular issues. And when you have a collective of boards, right, who are focused on one particular issue, whether it's funding or whether it's receiving additional funds to renovate or develop school facilities, guess what? You have a much louder voice now. And then folks are actually starting to pay attention to the things that you're trying to get done, as opposed to sitting back and focusing on these small trivial things. I just think going back to this conversation about, Leah Owens and not chairing that committee. I mean, you and I know, Eric, there's going to be conversation, there'll be buzz around this, there will be some energy that's devoted or dedicated to this. Is this the best thing for us to focus our time and energy on right now? Like, I just feel like we shouldn't even be having a conversation about that, because we should be so far beyond the pettiness in that space that we should know that we need to be we should be putting people on committees based off their skill set and what's in the best interest of children and in the best interest of this district. And now being able to move forward with our overall goal and agenda, which is to transform the experience that our students are having when they are going to attend these public schools. The other thing I would add is that when we start to talk about the collective power of school boards, there's some untapped resources as it pertains to overall spending power. We had a number of conversations with the school business administrator, Valerie Wilson, when I served on the board, about, opportunities to develop co-ops so that we can, beef up our purchasing power as a school district. If Newark is going out and they're purchasing, let's say we have a vendor that we're using to purchase our toilet tissue from, as an example. All right, we're a large district, but we're just one district, right? So we might be getting a pretty good rate on those goods that we're buying. But what happens now is Newark, Jersey City, Orange, East Orange, Bayonne decide to establish a co-op and say, we're going to pool our resources together and collectively go out and buy all of our products and services from this vendor as a collective now. You've now just beefed up your purchasing power. So you might have been going out here getting this stuff for, let's say, 30 cents a roll, but because you beefed up that purchasing power, right, and you increase that wholesale purchase, you might now knock that thing down to 7 cents, right? So I think that's one of the things that's really underestimated. And as we continue to go through this struggle in the state of New Jersey with funding for our public schools, I think that's going to be very important for school districts to figure out how they can leverage co-ops and those relationships so they can increase purchasing power and start to experience some cost savings so more of those dollars can reach the classroom as well.
So I'm going to say you guys have not met before, right?
We probably have been in events when we both have been under the same roof, but we haven't been formally.
All right. So I'm glad you guys got to talk today. I'm going to make a formal introduction, and I hope that you guys become the glue that helps build this show, at least on Tuesday, and then the other days as necessary, because I think, we're a community-based radio station and a community-based show, but I understand that the most critical thing right now in our community is solving this education issue. So, we have one day a week dedicated to it, but if we need to spend more time, then we just need to do that. But I hope that you guys help me build this thing. I would love it.
Absolutely, and thanks, Eric. And I want to quickly add to what Chairman Hassan had laid out. I think that's a brilliant concept for boards to come together and use their collective purchasing power to drive down costs and enhance efficiencies. And these are the pluses that we can get out. I have personally always spoken about smart dollars. I truly believe in the greatness of our nation, and I always like to say this. If anything, our nation was inspired by not wanting to pay tax to the wrong guy. So we can't really find solutions to our current education problems by trying to tax our way through this thing. We have to find out alternative sources of funding. And what Chairman Hassan just laid out is exactly the smart dollars. That's the kind of concept that we should be doing. Now, how can this be achieved? This is by board members speaking to each other. Capital expenses, we know that ever since Governor Christie came into power, he really slowed down the infrastructure spending in Newark and Jersey City. Now, with whatever happened in Newark in the last 10 years, that may not even be relevant anymore, but in Jersey City, it's still very, very relevant. And so capital expenses, we could be looking outside of the state funding to see how we can get one-time private sources of funding to impact capital expenses. For example, President Carter's Foundation, they do great work. They travel around the world and they build schools. They build schools in Indonesia. They build schools in Thailand. I would like to invite President Carter's Foundation to come to Newark and Jersey City and build one school on their way out to Asia.
Yeah.
You know? So they do great work. They partner with Delta Airlines, which is headquartered in Atlanta. They have a hub in JFK. So, if they're taking they take cruise, Eric. They take 50, 60 people and they camp in Asian countries and build schools. And we say, hey, you know what? Maybe we could use some of that here. Charity begins at home.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So listen, Brother Rashan, I appreciate your time. We're going to break for the 11 o'clock break, and then we're going to talk about some other issues. If you happen to be listening and you got the time to call back in, I would appreciate that. And if not, then you enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend with your family, brother.
All right, thanks, bro. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So when we come back from the break, there were some things that that we're going to talk about. You said you wanted to update me on programs that will give internships and jobs to public school seniors, right? We're going to talk a little bit about Trump and DeVos and the policy defunding public schools, right, and pro-charter policies. And then this is an interesting one, right? Alcohol and drugs and impact on schools. And then the last thing, or maybe you may want to make it the first thing, this whole thing going on in the legislative district.
Make that the last thing.
Make that the last thing. So we're going to make that the last thing. Let's see if we can take a quick call.
Yeah, very hot button right now.
A very hot button thing. Hello, caller.
Hi, Eric. Can I ask a question? Or no?
You can ask a question, absolutely.
Okay, I am from Jersey City and I would like to ask a question to the Vice President.
Sure. You're on the air.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Sudhan. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I didn't get your name. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Nabil Yusuf, Jersey City teacher.
Yes, Mr. Yusuf. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Yeah. Before you start, I just want to let you know that I'm not here on this radio show on behalf of the board. I'm here to speak for myself personally. But I wish you and your family the best for the Holy Ramadan. But go ahead.
Sure. I'm just asking about the Jersey City Public School. It does not reflect the diversity of the community when they come to hiring. Just for example, for our Muslim community, it is not represented at the board level in any kind of administration. And I would love you to deliberate in that, because we believe as a community, as a Muslim community, that the reflection of the hiring process, it should be reflected to the community. And that's it. This is my question.
Thank you very much. So listen, we've got a minute and a half. Do you want to start answering it now before we go to break, or do you want to hold off and answer that question? We're going to hold off and answer that question, but we will answer the question. Thank you, caller. And there is no age range for the kid. Well, it says kids 2 to 11 years old. So and kids under 2 free. So there is no age range for the children that you can bring. I have 4 tickets, so it's two pair. If you call in during the next hour, be happy to give you the tickets. Calling number is 973-457-8000. Again, the calling number is 973-457-8000. It says the proceeds go to the Loving Arms Foundation. I think this is a great opportunity for parents, or for dads in particular, to spend a little bit of time with their children. We'll be right back after this 11 o'clock break.
The current time.
Splash Radio 94.3. Ready. Dance
Wow, man. A
hall.
lot of information.
Soca.
A lot of information.
Hip hop and R&B.
Any inputs on how to do better?
African.
I love the
Disco.
natural very well.
Oldies
very well done,
but
man.
goodies.
You know,
Hi, this is
and
Jenny Jackson.
We're bridging the
Yeah,
gap.
but figure it out
Seriously.
because I think that
Splash Radio
If I come on Tuesday,
94.3
if I never bring my son,
Jersey.
not at all. But I think that people will quickly see the power when you're sitting here with Rashawn and we have the person
Hi,
from
this is
South Orange
McBoomin
and we have the
Moving.
person
Box
from
truck
Airport.
for rent.
Because
For all your
then what we
lighting
do-
event needs. Anywhere within the northeast
But I'm saying
orange,
what it does
Irvington
then
orange
is the
areas.
political
$50 a trip from Monday through Thursday. $60 from Friday through Sunday. Call 862-279-9300. That's 862-279-9300.
I don't know what he got. So he's having a lot of problems. They're going to fire him from the district. They're fucking with him. So I'm.
Know what I am doing? Downloading the Western Union app. I need to send money to my auntie in Nigeria. Know what I am doing now? Checking today's exchange rate to Nigeria on the Western Union app. Now I'm sending my auntie money to help her with her groceries.
Download the Western Union app today. Use it to check today's exchange rate and send money to loved ones in Nigeria. Western Union, moving money for better.
Western Union makes money from currency exchange. Carefully compare fees and exchange rates, which may vary and are subject to change. NMLS number 906983.
For the most authentic Caribbean food in town, check out Sunsplash Caribbean Bakery and Restaurant. They got the natural organic juice bar that'll get your day started right. Like the Power Punch, the Vig Juice, the Mega Green, roots like the Immortal and the Resurrection. And peep this, they have an extended bakery department that whips up my favorite, the hot Hardo breads. White or wheat, that's your choice.
If you're feeling hungry, just grab a bite. At Sunsplash Bakery, the food is right. Jamaican patty, Italian veggies. At Sunsplash Bakery, the food is right. Mix the peanut with the caramel porridge.
Serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they also cater to vegans and vegetarians with the Ital stew and the Ital aki, the soul jerk salmon and mango tilapia. And of course, they got the usual curry goat, oxtail, brown stew chicken, jerk chicken, and so much more. I mean, their menu is extended and they're highly rated. Your best bet is to just stop by or give them a call. They're open Monday through Wednesday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Thursday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sundays, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. They're located at 56 Main Street in Orange, New Jersey, and can be reached at 973-395-3777.
If they are some hungry days, we need some more food up on we empty plate. Long time we there and we sit on a wait. Sunsplash restaurant I run the place. Everybody me say just want a taste, yeah.
Let your food be a medicine. Eat well, live longer. I'm David Shepard, and I endorse this commercial.
Yo, this is Splash Radio and the #1 radio station in Jersey. I order them.
Well, I don't know, so Mr. J represent for 94.3 FM Splash Radio. We just splash out the music on them.
You're listening to the Eric Dawson Radio Show on 94.3 FM.
So we're back for the second hour of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. I appreciate so much former Chairman Rashawn Hassan calling in and helping us unpack some of what has been taking place at the Newark Board of Education. For you guys who are just joining us for this hour, I'm here with Vice President of the Jersey City Board of Education, Sudhan Thomas. And, we're going to embark on a whole nother set of topics. But before I do that, I want to re-announce what I announced earlier. I was told that the broadcast had broken up a little bit. So there's a father-daughter dance. It's going to be held at Costa del Sol on Vauxhall Road in Union. It's October 28th, but tickets are on sale now. I'm going to post the flyer, but the tickets went on sale starting May 1st, and they'll be on sale until June 30th. The purchase price varies, but it's around $50 and for children under 2, the tickets are free. Proceeds will go to the Loving Arms Foundation. And what I want to say to you guys is I have 4 tickets that were donated to the radio show. So if you want to get your hands on these tickets, and it seems like it's going to be an amazing event, then all you have to do is call in. Call-in number is 973-457-8000, and I'll give you the tickets, and you can take your daughter and have a great time. So the other list of topics that we're going to discuss today, and you let me know the order, man. Do we want to start off with the programs that you are putting in place that give internships and jobs? I thought that was very interesting. Internships and jobs to school seniors.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Eric, if you remember back in October when I was here, during the campaign, we spoke about what we were trying to do, in terms of achieving a situation of being able to train our school seniors and middle school children for real life. And one of the interesting things is that, which I discovered in this journey, is that we have 135 technology companies in Jersey City.
Mm-hmm.
And I visited a bunch of them and met with some of their CEOs. And one of the things I found out was that majority of the employees of some of these companies are foreign citizens on a limited shelf life work program. So I asked them the question as to why they didn't have American workers as opposed to foreign workers. And their reply was that they don't find qualified American labor to work for their companies. Now, we are the greatest nation in the world. We put the plane on the sky, we put the train on the railroad, we put the car on the street. And we made Google, Yahoo, Facebook in-house, no outsourcing. And to somehow look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me we don't have qualified American labor, that's something I'm unwilling to buy. And understand this, these guys spend about $20,000 on each foreign worker that they bring here. And between relocation and visa costs and family relocation and all kinds of stuff, and there's no guarantee that these guys will also remain for a long time because their work visas are very limited, 3 to 7 years, and the number of visas available also is coming down. So I asked them the question. I said, listen, we got 40,000 kids in our school district here. Will you be willing to work with them? So one of the things which we exchanged ideas and brought up was if they would be willing to work with us on a train to job program where they would train our middle school kids and eventually the seniors to get into jobs, entry-level coding jobs, entry-level data processing jobs, entry-level tech support jobs in these companies. Because I believe in Jersey City, I live in the Ward A section of Jersey City, and I believe that sometimes we as public servants have to also play that additional role of creating aspiration in our kids.
Absolutely.
Some of our kids may believe that if they get on a boat and start rowing, Hoboken is the end of the world. And we have to make them understand that there's a world out there. We have a lot of high-rises in Jersey City where these technology companies are housed, but there is no connection between some of our.
It's like two cities, right?
Yeah. Well, I know that term is loosely used, but I've seen both ends of it, and I think it's a city that's growing, in different pockets, and it's fascinating growth. In the early 80s, we saw growth in the waterfront area, but now you see bang in the center in Jones Square. We see there's a lot of focus in Greenville right now, the Lafayette area. So we see Jersey City growing, and our mayor has targeted an aspiration of making Jersey City the largest mid-level city in the United States, and that's what we're growing towards. And what we put together was a comprehensive program in the campaign of engaging with the corporate companies, engaging with the various craftsmen's unions and colleges, so that we can actually create a contiguous path for our students to move from school into these different evolution points. And we made some good progress in the last 4 to 6 months, and I think for the first buy-ins we got were from the industrial unions that are willing to work with us for integrated internships and job programs. We're even looking to partner with car rental companies which are willing to donate cars to these kids.
So you say you're looking to partner. Is it happening now, or you're still in the proposal stage with these companies?
It's right now in the incubation period. We will announce firm programs to start this academic year, meaning the new school year. So that's our target, and we all got into office in January, so it's really 4.5 months now. But we've done a lot of work, and we've got buy-ins from the unions, some of the industry unions, industrial trade unions. from the building trades unions. We've had some early interest shown by technology companies. We're hoping to close these deals quickly. We've had some conversations with the car rental companies, because one of the challenges is once these kids get their internship, they have to go somewhere. They have to go to a shop, or they got to go to a training school. They don't have the ability to go. So in the past, when these programs were attempted, they fell by the wayside because you couldn't get the kids out there. There's another component that we brought into this, that is social emotional skills training, because we think that we could train these kids, and there's a possibility that one or two of them may fall by the wayside because of maybe what's happening in their families, or maybe what is happening out there. So we want to bring together a very strong, comprehensive program. The school district superintendent is a big supporter of this initiative. The deputy mayor runs this program at a city level. So what we're trying to do is, they're running banking and finance, and we're trying to run technology and union jobs from the district as a pilot. So there's two pieces of the city running these internship programs, externship programs, and we are actually targeting just on the craftsmanship 500 students for 2017-2018. That's a big deal. I mean,
it's huge.
Yeah, if we can achieve even 3/4 of that, we're looking at breaking the cycle, Eric. I love Whoppers, my shoes are from Foot Locker, but for some of these kids, they think that's the ultimate career option. When you and I were growing up, that was our summer jobs.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah,
but now these are career options for these
so
kids.
Nothing wrong with that, but I think we have to say, hey,
there's more.
There's more out there. And when we take these kids to these high rises where the technology companies are working.
Oh, I can imagine. Their eyes open wide,
exactly.
Right? I mean, because it's a whole new world for them.
Exactly. And if you can take the parents there and say, hey, your kid can have that too. And if these if these tech companies are having, for example, a football game, and if they're taking their clients out, if 2 of our kids can go there, they can say, I can have that life.
But here's the question that I got to ask. Because I'm intimately involved with the discussions and things around education in Newark. I don't hear any of these kinds of conversations. Much like we talked about earlier in the first segment, the board members, speaking to each other, from different districts. Have you guys shared any of what it is that you've been doing over the last 4 months in putting this into an incubator stage and where you guys are going to try to get input and to give some insight to other districts, and in particular Newark?
Yeah, see, I would love to start communications with Newark and start working. My life. I'm a single dad. I'm a hybrid stay-at-home dad. 3 days a week I'm full-time with my 2.5-year-old son, and I work really 2 days a week, Mondays and Fridays. So what we want to do is to get one pilot out on craftsmanship and one on technology, so we have a proof of concept in place. Once we have that in place, starting conversations with other districts and saying, hey, how can you expand this? Because ultimately we have to make the public schools a success career path for our kids, college or career. That somehow that faith is slightly shaken right now, and that we need to reinstill that faith. And I think it's more of growing with the times and evolving with the times more than anything else. I wouldn't call it a failure point or a success point. It's about the ocean rising concept. We have to, we owe to our kids and to our grandkids to evolve our curriculum so that it actually gets them to succeed in real life, and not just career, but also as fathers and mothers and
absolutely
neighbors.
And so, what level of involvement? So you're working with the board. You said that the mayor has been helpful.
Yeah, very.
Okay.
Very, very helpful. The mayor's office has been very helpful. The deputy mayor runs this in a limited way out of her own office. She's given full support of her resources. The superintendent of schools is behind this, and she supports this, unconditionally. We are actually doing great things in Jersey City. We have a new president who was elected in January. His name is Joel Torres, and obviously I serve under him as VP. And we are really trying to reset and retool how this board impacts citizens, because ultimately it's just not like, we don't look at it as just a student-focused initiative. because this impacts students, it impacts parents, it impacts teachers.
It's community.
Yeah, it impacts the whole city.
The whole community.
Yeah, and in Jersey City, our budget is bigger than the municipal budget. Ours is $700 million budget. The city's budget is about 580. So we have a larger stake than the city itself, and so they added responsibility.
Well, listen, for all of you guys who are listening to what's going on in Jersey City, and this is what excites me too, Sudhan. So when you text me and say, "Hey, Eric, I want to come on, I want to talk about what's going on," you and I have had conversations, but my listeners don't know.
Yeah.
And I hope this excites them in a way that makes them go to the next board meeting and say, "Hey, you know what? This is what they're doing in Jersey City. I want to know what you guys are doing here." You know, we thinking about things like that. Are you guys communicating with those folks across, in Jersey City about how they're getting that done and how they're moving in these different directions? And then get rid of the petty politics, man, which is what Rashan said earlier. He said, we keep getting stuck over nonsensical things instead of the bigger things that we should be working on to improve the quality of life and the educational opportunities for our children.
Yeah, and I'll give you a quick example of cooperation within Jersey City, a success story, and then I want to talk about the politics piece which you spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
We had a situation through the winter months where crime was escalating in certain parts of the city, shootings, and so there was a growing call to have schools in certain parts of the city to work extended hours so that the kids could have a continuous program after school, and they can go back home, not hang out in the streets. Now, we had identified 3 schools in Ward F of Jersey City that needed extended hours, and the superintendent was, very willing to put support to extending the schools. The city stepped in, and the recreation department said they will, run these programs. The mayor picked up the tab. This is a perfect example of 3 pieces of the puzzle coming together. The board leadership, Mr. Torres, Joel Torres, who's the president, we evangelized this with the city leadership, and superintendent unconditionally supported. And I have to mention specifically, there's a Jersey City Together. There's a community organization there which evangelized for this aggressively with the city leadership, the council, and the board. And it all came together in very short order. We didn't have to jump through hoops. We didn't have to write major pieces of legislation. We got this done. And that gives me hope. That should give everybody who's listening today that, and I like to repeat this again and again, we are the greatest nation in the world. And to preserve this, we can come together, and we have to come together. And we should not allow divisive forces to separate us. We see a lot of things going on in the country right now. We have to fundamentally believe that across time, even the last 100 years, 150 years, when there was trouble in any corner of the world, they came to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And because they looked to us for leadership. For us to preserve that status of leadership, we have to set right things home first. And our kids, we owe it to them to make them great citizens, to give them a future that they can look forward to. They shouldn't be looking at the corner store, standing at the corner of the street as the end of their life, or that's the career path. They should be able to look beyond. And I think we have a lot of potential. I think our best days are ahead of us.
Well, listen, it seems, again, like you guys are doing great work in Jersey City. I'm happy to have met you and was able to, be of some small support to you during your candidacy, man. And so the updates, you coming in and talking about it just reassures me, that there are folks out there who really want to do great work that is not about politics, but it's about the kids, it's about the community. And when you see it, and when you see those different pieces working together, for the interest of the community, for the interest of the kids, then real things happen.
Yeah, and I want to quickly touch upon the politics of it. And for me, it was more of a survival strategy than anything else, because I have only that many hours in the day. I wake up around 4:30 in the morning. My son wakes up at 6:30. I have to finish all my emails, get the house ready, cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner before.
That's right, you're a single dad.
Yeah, I'm a single dad. So he wakes up at 6:30, and then it's with John the whole day. Then he goes to sleep at 8 o'clock. Then my day starts again, and I pass out at 10 o'clock. So one thing I quickly caught on to as a board member was that you can decide what kind of a board member you want to be. And the push and pull of politics is there, and then there's the pull and push of focusing on policy and programs. Now, you can coast through the next 3 years, devoting 80% of your time being sucked by the politics and only doing 20% of your time on policy and programs. I choose to do the other. I hunker down and I focus 80% of my energy on policy and program. Because when people start seeing the benefit of the work that you're doing, when you start impacting citizens' life through your work, then that's the real call of service. That's what you're here for. You know.
Well, but we understand that that's what you should be there
Yeah.
for. But there are a lot of politicians who are not there for that. And so my fear always is when you're trying to, when you see a sea of candidates running for political office, you have to discern what their motivation is. Right?
Yeah.
And if folks are there because they are trying to get a come up in politics, then they're going to spend the majority of their time doing the politics and
Absolutely.
not focusing on the policy.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say when when there is an election, and I say, well, what are the qualifications of the person? Because typically, if they haven't been doing the work prior to running for office,
Yeah.
the likelihood of them doing the work once they get in the office is
because it's what you've done in the past, the relationships that you have, the folks that you can call on a first name basis on speed dial on a cell phone, folks who will actually take you seriously because you've done things in the past. So all of that matters, And I still remember this conversation I had with one of our elected leaderships from whom I seek counsel from. And when I met him like last year to tell him, when I'm planning to run for office, he said, listen, a lot of folks come to me, some of them don't have a job, and so they look at running for office as a path to getting a job. Now, there may be nothing wrong in that, but I think as citizens who vote, and I say this as a man of color because, Eric, I take this voting thing very seriously because I got this free. I didn't have to fight for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, somebody fought for it for me 50, 60 years ago. I didn't have to cross a bridge. I didn't have to fight to get on a bus. I didn't have to fight to sit on a diner. I didn't have to fight to drink from a fountain. I got all of this for free. This is very personal to me,
Mm-hmm.
And so I take this very seriously. And I think it's important for us for citizens to vote, and come out and vote and engage in vote and do the right due diligence. This is not 1960s. You can find out everything about a candidate today with the internet and, free sources out there, background checks and stuff like that. We should hold our public servants, and I use that word on purpose, to a very high standard. Because we are putting our future, the country's future, in their hands. Every decision, every text message that they send, every phone call that they make, every meeting that they have directly impacts our life. We should hold them to a very high bar.
So why do you think, because I do an internet radio show on Wednesdays with my co-host Osman Shabazz, and we're trying to figure out where that disconnect is, why folks are not taking, not only education, but in general, voting seriously.
I mean, I think President Obama did a great job in energizing the youth participation. I think, I have personally volunteered in this campaign, helped register voters. But one of the things I've always seen is when you meet young people and they say, hey, I'm not interested in politics. I'm not going to vote.
Mm-hmm.
I look at them and say, fine. Don't complain when you see the pothole on the street. Don't complain when your school sucks. Don't complain when you pay high taxes. So I think it's about educating people about what the power they actually have. I think a lot of folks don't understand the power that they have.
But nobody's educating them, Sudhan.
Yeah, well, we need to have...
nobody's educating them. And I got to say this, too. I was supposed to go out yesterday to the parade, and I think it was yesterday, to the parade. My days, the holiday weekend has me screwed up. But I was supposed to go out and help do some voter registration, but I got caught up, and I want to apologize to all the folks who I said I was going to be out there. I got caught up finishing some work assignments for a client, and I got to pay my bills, so I needed to make sure I take care of that. But one of the big things has to be registering people to vote. I talk on this show a lot about the fact that we need to bring civics back. We don't have that.
Yes.
I mean, what is the real hurdle? You as the vice president of the Board of Education, what is the hurdle in saying, we need to bring civics back into our schools?
So let me answer it in a slightly personalized way. During the campaign, I addressed a lot of communities. Jersey City's, and this is also going to be a partial answer to Mr. Youssef who had called earlier. Jersey City is a very diverse city. Apparently we speak more than 61 languages in Jersey City.
Oh.
I don't think I can name more than 10 languages, but apparently we speak 61 languages. And in one of the community meetings which I attended, it was in celebration of an ethnic group. And I was there at the meeting. It was a kind of a middle of the night party, and a lot of folks, about 10,000 people. So I spoke, and you could feel the emotion and the charged atmosphere. Everybody's happy, they're dancing, they're partying, and it was a religious holiday for them. And I said, I want to be back next year. Hopefully I win, and I'll be back as a Board of Ed member. But I want to see two things when I come back next year. I said, I want to see this event starting with a rendition to our national anthem. And I want to see a bunch of American flags at this event, because celebrating this culture is not independent of the United States. You're celebrating your culture's success in the United States. It's not independent. Because remember, our nation is the nation that inspired the German immigrants to enlist in the US Army and go and liberate the Holocaust camps in World War II. Our nation is the nation that inspired the Italians to enlist in the US Army and go and fight against Mussolini's army in World War II. So part of the challenge today is owning nationhood. I think if folks have that complete sense of belonging, that this is my home, this is my country, and making it better or worse is my responsibility, that's a big challenge. And unfortunately, we don't see too many programs from the State Department or state or city like a Welcome to America 101 package, just throwing it out there. That's one thing. The second thing is citizens should be able to know. We encourage, for example, at the board level. I think I always say this at our board meetings, that this is democracy at its best, because we have public comment. People come and speak. Parents come and speak about the kids being bullied. Teachers come and speak about the harassment that they experience, and communities come and speak about common problems that they have. For example, right now there's been a problem about emotional disorders, kids not having, the support that they want in the district. I wouldn't have known about this at all unless the parents came and spoke about it. But the power of that democratic participation, be it speaking in a public meeting or, petitioning, or ultimately the power is voting, I think that is something which we should talk about. Now, going back to Mr. Yousaf's question about diversity, I was told by a couple of leaders in the Islamic Society in Jersey City that the Islamic Society community in Jersey City is 65,000 members. The community is 65,000 strong, but the number of registered voters of Islam religion is about 8,000. So that's where they have to start. They have to focus on, and of course everybody has to have a stake in that, but voter registration, educating people to come out of their closed environments and start participating in the city, because this country belongs to everybody. We became a nation because people came out and proclaimed independence. So that going back to the roots is important. Somehow the social media culture and the cable 24-hour news cycle culture has kind of diminished that grassroots level engagement. And if we can tell people, remind people constantly of the power that they have, I think we can start seeing a lot of
But
results.
I always say that on the local level, folks are trying their best to not let the general populace know the power that they have. It's not in the best interest of those who are in power to let the people know that they are the ones who are truly in power. The way that the folks who are in power stay in power is by convincing the masses that they are powerless.
True, but if you look at President Obama's election, 2008, that was a historic moment in our nation, which reminded that people had power, and we could have drawn from that, and we could have taken a lot of lessons and moved on. Somehow, unfortunately, we lost track of that progress, I would say, with what happened last year in November. But a lot of people stayed home. They didn't come out to vote for Hillary, for instance, regardless of which side of the aisle you are. Now, I think...
But see, even there, I want to dissect that just a tiny bit, because I think that what happened was, for all that happened in 2008 and 2012, the Democratic Party lost touch with or refused to empower those millennials, right? And so because they now had ascended to power, right, 2008, 2012, they then started to create a bubble around themselves and started to ignore this whole segment over here. And so when it came to the 2016 election and they heard voices over there, that were being listened to by Bernie Sanders, they believed that they didn't really have to pay much attention. They figured they had a path. They had already cut a path to victory for 2016. And they began down that path and ignored, and you could see the snowball because the voices got louder the more they were ignored. And the more they were ignored, the more they were looking for somebody to coalesce around who had access to a platform to be able to talk about their issues, because their issues were not being talked about by the mainstream Democratic Party. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm saying that instead of so to me the lost opportunity was once they won in 2008 and 2012 to broaden the tent now and say, you know what, let's see if we can bring more people in. But they in effect shut them out.
Yeah, and you know,
and that's what I think happened. So instead of engaging them and then realizing, you know what, the party, right, or the community of people as a whole will be better off for this. They were looking to satisfy the few who had already made it under the tent to make sure that they still had access to power.
So for me, I take a different approach to this, Eric, and I'll tell you what the thing is. If you look at millennials, if you look at recent immigrants, if you look at African American community, if you look at Hispanic, these are all verticals, okay? Verticals. But there's one thing that is a common thread that transcends all of these verticals. There's a horizontal through this, and that's the middle class. Okay, that's the everyday, mom and pop, everyday you and me, living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to pay our next bills, figuring out if our school is safe for our kids, figuring out if our school will work for our kids' future, figuring out if our health insurance will work if we go to the doctor. That middle class path transcends all of these, demographic groups that we talk about. And I think that's where we went off message, because there was no clear path of assurance that there was a contiguous solution path for the middle class through continued support of the Democratic Party. That's why we saw what happened in Michigan. That's why we saw what happened in Wisconsin. That's why we saw what happened in Pennsylvania. Now, it may be a small subset, okay, of demographics that were visible over there. But even if you look at Romney, President Obama numbers in New Jersey in 2012, and if you look at the Trump, Hillary numbers in New Jersey in 2016, he was pretty close.
Yes, he was.
And so I think it's not just. I think the failure was looking at it as verticals. The success would have come if they looked at it as a common thread that went through all of these groups. And that is the economic challenges. How do I pay for my insurance? You and I, when we were growing up, if we applied for a credit card, our first card was $2,000. Now the first card is $300. You're lucky if you get $100 on your first credit card.
Right.
So it's a very different economic situation today. Back in the day, when we went to the doctor's office or the pharmacy with the insurance, everything was paid for. We had $10, $200. Now, your deductibles are high. Every month, for example, I'm spending about $300 in just deductibles on account of my son. So these are everyday issues that somehow pocketbook issues. This is where President Clinton was successful. If you remember his kitchen table discussions in the 90s when he ran, that engagement, direct engagement to citizenry, didn't happen. Obama was able to make that connection, and I was a big supporter of Hillary Clinton from 2008. I actually voted for her over Obama in 2008 before I warmed up to President Obama. But unfortunately, I think the party as a whole got so stuck in this whole, and that's why I think we should go back to the basics. And what we are doing, for example, in Jersey, focus on everyday issues. Get the kids to get jobs. Get the kids to have emotional and social support. I was in a meeting a couple of months back where there were about 50 students. These are all members of the basketball teams, baseball teams. These are the hot shots. I was not a big sports player. I used to run a bit, but that was it. So I always looked up to these are the hot dudes in school. Every girl wanted to date them, right? And I was in this meeting, and I had the opportunity to, greet them. So I shook hands with about 40 to 50 kids. These are all the hot shots of the school. And I'll tell you something which was very stark to me. Not one kid looked me in the eye, or for that matter, anybody else's eye when they shook hands. and their handshakes are half handshakes. Now, when you and I were growing up, we were taught how to shake hands because that was the impression. Now, if these kids are really good, if they go to an interview, they may lose the opportunity to get a job just with that half a handshake. So that's why we realize that the emotional, social presentation skills is very important to get our kids to succeed. That's not there. There's no curriculum right now for that, you know. So that's what we want to focus on. So that a day before the election, a person very close to me asked me, Sudhan, how would you consider if you win? It looks like you're going to win. You came out of nowhere. You don't throng the social circles of Jersey City. You're not there in parties. I don't drink. I'm not there. I'm dad. You know, I'm full time with my kid. But it looks like you're going to pull off a win. How would you measure your success 3-year term? I said at the end of 3 years, okay, all the politics and policies and the programs, the dandy stuff aside, at the end of 3 years, if I can name in my Rolodex or in my pocketbook 300 names of students that the work has directly impacted, I'll call my term a success. And that's what I'm working towards.
There we go. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about was Trump and DeVos and their defunding policy, right, or the proposed defunding policy. Now, last week I had Republican gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli on. I've been trying to reach out to get the lieutenant governor on, have not been successful.
Should have it with me on the show together. That would be nice.
That'd be a great show, huh? But you know, there is going to be a fix to or a change to the current school funding formula, right? And now, gubernatorial candidate and Lieutenant Governor Guardano says that she's not going to raise taxes. Jack Ciattarelli says that she's pandering to the voters, that taxes are going to have to be raised. But you know, talk to me about, I mean, not just in terms of President Trump and DeVos, but then when we are talking about a new governor, right, how that all is going to shake out, you know, on a state level for us.
So let's go back to the basics on this. And, you know, we spoke about this last time as well. The New Jersey budget is about, I think, $32 billion, and we spend about $12 billion on education. Let's just say for discussion's sake, it's 1/3. Now, for every $500 million that they knock off the school budget, what does it actually happen? Does it actually go to another expenditure, or does it mean reduction of taxes? That's the math. This entire initiative of reducing funding to schools is, at the end of the day, putting more money in the multimillionaires or the 1%. That's at the core of all of this. Now, if you can figure that out, then you can kind of understand all of the leading actions that come out of it. The bottom line is, this entire discussion about small government and, you know, all of that stems from one goal. That one goal is so that there can be more money in the hands of the 1%. That's what this is about. Now, this takes different shapes and forms. Mitt Romney wanted to make the post office into Staples so that you could reduce the post office, and Staples, which was the corporation that he invested in, will become the next post office. Now, schools, biggest public policy, one of the largest public policy programs in the United States. If you can defund this means more money in the hands of the 1%, but also means it's a business opportunity. Because remember, this is the words that were used in the 60s. The government has monopoly over the school business. How do we get into this? So it's a twofold path in this thing. It's not just about reduction of taxes and putting more money in the hands of the 1%, but it's also about looking at this as a business opportunity, not as a service or a duty. That's the fundamental difference. Now, I know some viewers who are listening to this may say, hey, this guy's a radical left-wing guy because he's talking about the 1%. No, you look back into anything that is out there in terms of a public policy program, be it Social Security, be it healthcare, be it the U.S. Post Office, be it reduction of army, which some folks came up with. Everything has one goal in two parts. Reducing government expenses so that that money can go in the hands of the 1%, and privatizing this so that this can become a business enterprise and people can make money out of it. That's what it is. If you can understand that basic premise, then all the leading actions that come out of it becomes very simple.
And so when we're having these discussions, because I would say that the majority of the folks on a local level who are screaming and hollering about what's going on in Washington, they don't understand that premise.
I think it's important for public servants to educate. It's important for community activists to educate. For example, the charter school thing. For example, we spoke about the corporate charters.
Mm-hmm.
On the face of it, yeah, it's a very noble thing. The
and then I got to tell you, when
Yeah.
you were on the last show,
Yeah.
you educated me on
Yeah.
the difference between
Yeah.
a corporate charter
Yeah.
and a community charter
Exactly.
school.
Yeah. Now nobody talks about that. For example, in our district, we have about close to $80 million off the $700 million budget that goes into the charter schools. Okay. Now, what this means is that we are paying X number of dollars per student. Now the charter schools sign up in the beginning of the year. They say we're getting 100 students, and they get say $300,000. Now, in 2 months' time, if they send back 20 kids to the public school saying we can't manage these kids because we don't have the programs, they need special education, they need special handling, and we don't have those things. There's no defunding to the extent of which the charter school sends the kids back. The money doesn't follow the student. That's one thing. The second thing is the biggest problem that I have here is the lack of oversight. Our public schools, you can move a pin without a resolution or a very well thought out process of governance and execution in place. Charter schools, they wing it on the go, and so it's not a level playing field. Remember, the charter schools were not started to compete with the public school. They were started with a noble cause that they would be incubators, and those success models could be emulated into the public schools so that we could re-energize the public schools, because the public schools are too big to bring those radical ideas in, but at a smaller level you could do it. But now we have charter schools competing with public schools. We have charter school owners calling the district in Jersey City saying, hey, you're not using this building, can I take it over? Can I take over? So look at what happened in Newark. The district almost has become like a clearinghouse. So they receive the money from the state and it goes out to a bunch of charter schools. Look at what happens in New Orleans, for example. There are only 4 public schools left in New Orleans. So this is all good, but we don't talk about what happens on the other side. The guys who are investing, the non-public component of the funding, be it the owner of the building who's invested in a building for creating a charter school or other programs, they get a 30% write-off that they can claim over a period of 7 years. That money doesn't come back to us. We have no share of that. If Jersey City gives out $80 million a year to the charter schools, each charter school that gets the tax write-off on their investment component, be it a real estate or a capex investment, that money even is not shared with the public school, which means that $80 million is a write-off. So our district, when they start the year, they look at a $700 million layout and they have $80 million to go to charter schools. That means they're only starting at 620.
Right.
It's like asking defense in football to say, hey, let's take out 20 yards and you defend. That's what they're doing to us, and that needs to change.
But now the argument on the other side is that the 80 million, that those kids, that 80 million represents a cluster of children who are not going to be in the traditional public school.
Well, in the beginning, they were going to public school. And then the charter schools were set up and the kids left the public schools to go to charter schools. Are they serving a purpose? Of course they are. Do the parents have a right to do it? Absolutely. I'm for parental choice. I think if I want to homeschool my child, I should be able to homeschool my child. If I want to send my child to private school, I should be able to do it. If I want to send my child to charter school, I should absolutely be able to do it.
But under what framework then? Because
if you're taking public money, you should play by the same rules. That's the bottom line. That's the framework.
That is the framework.
Yeah, if you're taking public money, play by the same rules. You can't have 2 sets of rules, but have a different set of conditions. The public schools are playing by one set of rules, and they're getting public money. But the
charter school is getting public money, but they're not being. They don't have to adhere to those same sets of rules.
The head of the board of a charter school.
How do we change that?
People have to legislate. People have to energize. This is why it's important to change state laws. So we can have a much more. It's all about accountability and oversight. That's all we're talking about here. We're not saying shut down the charter schools. We are saying have them have the same accountability that public schools have.
Then when we talk again about special interests, right? And you said the formula at the end of the day is to make sure that as these policies lay themselves out, that those who benefit are the top 1%.
That's the bottom line at the end of the day. They put up a building, and they say the school is going to be here, and that building belongs to them. They rent checks to themselves. Nobody checks to see if that rent is, in accordance with the comms in that area. Nobody does this auditing. For us, as I said, if our school district has to move a pin, there has to be a board resolution and a board approval. Those guys don't play by the same rules.
Well, I mean, and you educated me on that before, and I thought it was astonishing that there weren't rules that governed them in that way.
Yeah, and then let's look at the teachers. You can hire and fire anybody you want. If you don't like the teacher's face, you can you can fire the teacher.
Now, I want to ask you about that. This whole idea, and I think that there needs to be a balance, though. There's this whole fight over LIFO, right? Last in, first out.
Yeah.
And so, how do you strike a balance? I mean, well, firstly, do you agree that a teacher who has more time in should be the last person to be laid off, and we shouldn't be measuring performance at all?
I don't think anybody says we shouldn't measure performance. Every teacher is evaluated every year, and the system is. This is a kind of a false, thing that has been created, that teachers are not evaluated. Teachers are evaluated, and if they have bad reviews for 3 years consecutively, they can be.
But I'm saying this whole. But I'm talking specifically about LIFO, though.
Yeah.
Which says last in, first out. So if you're a teacher who's competent and you've only been working for a year, and then you've got another teacher who's tenured, who's been there for 20 years, does the policy state that teacher who's been there for 20 years is given preferential treatment because of the tenure?
So let me give you a little larger landscape about the profession of teachers itself. The profession of teaching is right now under attack, and I fear for the continuity of this. Are we, as a country, as a civilization, are we able to inspire our young citizens to embrace the profession of teaching? Are they able to see teaching as a path towards economic sustenance, not even prosperity? Okay. Now, if you look at the teachers in Jersey City, with the Chapter 78 thing that Governor Christie brought into place with the insurance premium sharing, the average teacher in Jersey City, for instance, is paying out about $1,000 a month, Eric, in insurance cost sharing. But their salaries have really not gone up in the last 4 years, which means if you actually sit down and go down the weeds and look at these numbers, their numbers have actually gone down in the last 4 years. And we all know how much the general price index has gone up in the last 4 years. Now, the question is that when teachers made the deal to become a teacher, they said, okay, we are signing up for a profession which only pays for 10 months. It pays us probably slightly lesser than what would be being paid in the corporate world. But we have certain protections. We have a union contract. We have collective bargaining. We have health insurance. We have pension. All of these things. And then we have tenure. Now, this was part of the deal that was made that could inspire people to embrace this profession. Now, halfway through this thing, you can't change the rules and say, hey, by the way, we changed our mind about this. So, as murky as it sounds, if a deal was made, you can't change the rules of the game after the game started. If a teacher came on board 20 years ago with the understanding that if something happened in terms of layoffs, she would be the last to go based on the years she has put in, that has to be preserved, because that's the deal she signed up for. Now, halfway through, you want to change the deal and impact it for the people who are coming on board now, but don't impact the people who are already been there.
And I guess in theory, I get that. But are you suggesting? And I love when you come on, because you make me rethink some of the things and some of the positions that I previously had. But I still want to make sure that even if that teacher signed on for that, and now there are potential layoffs, that teacher who has that time in is still the best choice for the students. I mean, that's really where I am at the end of the day, that I want to make sure that when you're laying off this other teacher who's only been there for a year, if that teacher was a better teacher, I want that.
Who determines that? There's no framework to determine who's a better teacher over the other teacher. There's individual evaluation of teachers that's in place. So it's a completely falsification to state that there's no evaluation of teachers. That's not true.
So there's no way to really determine that one teacher is a better teacher over another teacher?
So you go with the premise that if you have worked for 10 years or 20 years and you have 20 years of experience behind you, you will definitely potentially be better than the person who's worked for 1 year. But that's not the merit or the determination on which this is done. This is done on the fact that you come in, and if you have put in years of service, and if there's a layoff mechanism that kicks in, then the person with the least years goes out first. The person with the most years stays in. That's the determination point. It's not about who's the better teacher or who's the better. But I want to say this specifically to the viewer, to your listeners. There's a lot of stories out there that tenured teachers or union teachers are not evaluated. Performance evaluation is not done. That's just not true. You can look up public. All of the union contracts are very public. You can look them up. In Jersey City, I can speak for Jersey City. If a teacher has a bad evaluation for 3 years, the district has the ability to fire them. So it's a misnomer. It's a complete falsification to say that if a teacher is not efficient, he or she can just stay on until they retire and collect their pension. It's just absolutely not true. I'm the chairman of the legal committee of my board, and I see these cases every day. That when a teacher has a bad evaluation for 3 years, the district has the ability to get them up.
All right. Somebody posted, they said he's dropping jewels, he's dropping information, and that's what it's about. It's about providing information to our folks.
Thank you, Eric. I mean, you're the vessel for you're giving me the medium to do this.
Listen, I'm happy that we have this platform. So I want to, because we have 9 minutes. So in the 9 minutes, talk to me. The alcohol and drug thing and the impact on schools, that's important. And then also what's going on in Legislative District 31.
Let's talk about alcohol and drugs first.
Okay.
Again, going back to the times you and I were raised, we saw drug problems across, and we were always constantly educated. Hey, say no to drugs, no hope in dope, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, over the last few years, I don't see that, that messaging. Either I've grown up, I'm 42 years old, either my circle of existence has moved beyond that messaging board, or as a culture we have got used to this drug and alcohol issue. Now, I'll tell you what I saw in my campaign. I met a lot of parents. I met a lot of folks. I knocked on 22,000 doors in Jersey City. And by the way, for this, thank you, because you helped me with this thing. I won with 18,073 votes.
That's incredible.
Apparently nobody in Jersey City has got more than 12,000 votes to win a school board election across New Jersey. So I'm very humbled, and along with this comes huge responsibility. It's a very, very humbling responsibility. Now, one of the things I noticed which gave me a lot of concern were adults whom I met, during the daytime, spaced out, and some of them had kids. And my concern is, what impact do their day-to-day decisions have on these kids? How are they able to inspire these kids? And
well, not only inspire them, but we always talk about the post-traumatic stress disorder that these children are undergoing while we're trying to educate them in the classroom.
Yeah, and if that's the model that they have, if they're looking at self-medication as a quick exit to their problems, then you're expanding the problem to the next generation. So we were at a city meeting, council, with the city council, with President Rolando and district leadership and board a couple of weeks ago, and we went through an agenda. And at the end of the agenda, I said, guys, I want to talk about one thing. It's not on the agenda, and that's the alcohol and drug problem. Every program we're talking about is a band-aid if we don't fix this fundamental problem. We have a very serious problem in our country, which we are overlooking. If we don't fix this drug, and I said this publicly in the meeting, we can go to parts of our country where we can get crack for $10. Get a piece for $100, pimping for $20. If we don't get to the bottom of this, if we don't fix this, everything else is only a band-aid, because the school system is not independent of what's happening in society. Mm-hmm. What happens in the home transcends to the school and back. And if we don't fix these home issues, alcohol and drugs, we're going to have another generation of challenges, and we will be failing this generation. Because we, as our generation, born in the 60s and the 70s, we are on the cusp between the millennials and the baby boomers. And we really need to look at this seriously, Eric, because if we don't fix this drug issue, we don't fix this alcohol issue, everything else is a band-aid.
But, people are in pain in our community, and they're self-medicating. That's one. The second piece of it is it's a source of revenue for folks who have no other, or who don't see another means of
absolutely
of earning. And so it just one feeds the other, right? The drug dealer feeds the addict. The addict then supplies the drug dealer with money, and then it just keeps going. So where does the cycle break?
We have to break the cycle by creating that aspiration that you can have a career, you can have money, and you can have that American dream house, and you can have that picket fence if you actually get work. That's why we don't have a 3C.
But now you're asking people who have grown up in a culture of not working.
So being on the school board, I can focus on the kids because that's the hope we have, that we can break the cycle at that generational cusp. I was talking to a freeholder the other day. He said he's seen 3 generations of the same family in a project.
That's absolutely right.
Okay, 3 generations. Okay,
and the 4th generation is looking forward to inheriting that same apartment.
Yeah, and this guy is not even a very, he's my age. So I'm like, wow, you've seen 3 generations.
And so now, see, we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Because now you've got this kid who is a product of multiple generations.
Yeah.
And you, as a school district, only have that child for X amount of hours a day, right? And you're dealing with all of the social, or the psychological issues that child is in. You're trying to unpack all of that.
Yeah.
You're trying to provide an aspirational message. You're trying to get them to a point of competing.
Partnership between the school district, city leadership, state leadership, federal, county, focusing on not just school hours. You said something about just being in school hours. No, our responsibility transcends the school 8:30 to 3.
Right, but now see, but when we look at the situation like this and we understand the connective tissue, it's imperative, when we go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, that we take our vote seriously.
Absolutely.
That the people that we put in office are qualified to unpack and to solve these complex issues. It's not just about, a popularity contest during elections. It's not about getting caught up in the political infighting. It's about you going to the poll and understanding that you're going to pull a lever, or in this case now, with the technology, we push the button, right? That we're going to push the button for somebody who has the ability to solve these problems that we're talking about, and that you see and live every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why people's engagement. We have to own this, Eric. We can't run away from this. We can't say, I'm not interested in politics. We have to be interested in
politics. I say this all the time. Politics are impacting you every single day. And so when people say, well, I don't do politics, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. You have to own it. You have to participate in it. And that's the way we can preserve the greatness of our nation.
All right, so in the next 2.5 minutes, talk to me about, in politics, what's going on in Legislative District 31.
So we have a very interesting race going on there. Incumbents, Assemblywoman McKnight and Assemblyman Nick Chavaladi, they're running in the primaries. And we have a strong campaign run by a JCEA PAC operative, Christian Hart, who the JCEA PAC actually endorsed me in my election, and we worked very closely. And it's what is fascinating for me as a school board member, and looking at this from the outside, is, it's possible that I'm only listening and hearing what I want to hear, but this state assembly primary is shaping out to is looking to me like a school board election because of the issues that are being battled upon, debated upon, and the people who are funding these candidates. Now, Parents for Progress, who spent about $550 million against me and lost in the last election, is funding Christian Hart's opponents through certain specific, targeted activity. The JCEA and the NJEA, who are pro-teachers union, pro-public schools, are funding and supporting Christian Hart. So it's very interesting, but for me as a school board member, I'm looking more at the November school board elections that are going to be happening next year, this year, because the school board race has already started in this assembly.
But they're laying the foundation.
Yeah, the issues, the stakeholders, the money that's being spent is already casting the shadow on what's going to happen. I'm not a candidate this time, so I'm going to really enjoy this and watch this from the outside.
But you're not a candidate, but you're still involved, and you'll be impacted by those who wind up being on the board. So we have to figure out how to be involved. So loop me in, and I'm sorry we only had a tiny bit of time to talk about this. I want to talk a little bit more about it, but I want to be engaged again.
Absolutely, Eric. Thanks
all right. Listen, man, it's always a pleasure, Sudhan. Thanks for joining me. Hey, guys, listen, this is Eric. This is Sudhan. Enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day. We're out.
This has been the Eric Dawson Radio Show.
It's not just about Eric's opinion. It's about understanding what's really going on. Just continuing to talk about what elected leadership is doing without talking about the people who elected the elected leadership.
Splash Radio 94.3. Spread it.